wanted to revisit, kind of go back to the beginning of the day and our purpose for being here. And, you know, you all are busy people, and it was, it's hard to get here. There's, even when we try and pick a central location, you know, some of you have long drives. And we deliberately put you in a room together. There were questions about, can we just do this virtually? Can we have like a Zoom piece? And I just want to remind you and put you in that zone of learning again as a new piece, a new role for you as facilitator in these buildings. When Derek said, you know, networking was part of our deal today. Networking is part of the purpose. And who's the best facilitator? All of us, right? The room. So even as some of these pieces may be old hat for you, you've done these for a long time. You haven't sat in this room together with these people before. Maybe some of them. And we're essentially going to be the PLC. You know how sometimes you have like these amazing teachers or amazing principals, and they're like, oh my gosh, why do I have to sit in this group with my third grade team? Why do I have to come to these admin meetings? Right? There's a reason for a PLC, because we always say, who's the best teacher? The best teacher is all of our teachers together, because we can solve the problems together. So this grant is different than any other work I've been involved in terms of trying to get in and put supports into buildings that aren't getting the results they wish they were getting. We did not get 76 separate little grants to figure out, what do you want to do, and what do you want to do, and what do you want to do, right? It's like an Oprah moment. You get a grant, and you get a grant. So what we have is, we have one grant, right? We have one grant with leadership and literacy as kind of a two-pronged approach here. And you're all in it together. You're not just in one building or two buildings or whatever. We are all in it together, and it's like about raising the tide here in Region 3 and 7. Okay, so I'm going to just challenge you that if some of these things seem like, oh my gosh, if I hear one more time about norms, and I would just like to know what the work is, I'd like to challenge you to maybe meet some different people then. Sit with some new people, because I'm telling you, I know somebody in this room who, when they were dancing, can do those splits. Can jump up and do the splits, and I am not going to look at that person and give that away, but I think you should try and find out who that is. All right. So here's where we are in this next bit. I would like you to try and find this document of this. Think of it as like an anticipatory set to our next meeting together, where we're going to really do a deep dive into the 5 phases of our work. But there's actually a ton of different layers to the work, and we don't want to just stand here these first 2 meetings that we have with you and just, do that. So it's just sort of a just-in-time plan we have going for you. Okay? So when you understand the phases, you'll kind of see why maybe some of these chunks of learning, why you're going to still have these questions, and that's okay to have questions. And in fact, if, as you're going through this process right now with me, if you've got questions that are not being answered as we're going through it, I would encourage you to write on some sticky notes, and we've got a poster in the back that says questions and parking lot, because if we don't get to them today, that's going to be some of what we do next time. All right? So here's your first task. Your first task, many of you have seen this protocol of See, Think, and Wonder. I would like you to look at that top page only and just jot some notes down. It can be right on this paper. Remember, you're going to get electronic copies of all this stuff. You can write right on it. What do you see? What does it make you think? And what do you wonder about? And so only for about a minute and a half. What do you see, what do you think, and what do you wonder about? To dig into these right now, these different phases, the ones that are all on the right-hand side of the graphic. And so that's what I've included in the handout. And so I'm going to challenge you to find your 6 o'clock partner in about 30 seconds. Bring this with you, find your partner, and have a seat. Look up here, ready to go. We are going to spend about 5 or 6 minutes. We're going to try and do this quickly. What we're going to do is the say something protocol, so you guys can decide how far you're going to read. The object of the game is to get through the rest of the document. So you're going to read it silently and then stop and say something. And so you and your partner decide how far are we going to read before we stop and say something. Okay? So you can do something easy and say you're going to go through the first page and stop and say something, go through the second page and stop and say something. That's fine. Whatever seems like a logical break point to you. The point is, though, after you silently read the agreed upon piece, each of you has a chance to say something about what you just read. We would encourage you to try and make connections to the things that you've already heard and been doing today when you stop and say something. Okay? So does anybody want to give me the first thing you're going to do with your partner is? Read. Good job. Identify when you're going to stop. And then the second thing is? Read that part. And then the third thing is? Say something. And then what? Switch. Decide how much further you're going to read the next time. And then what? Read. Stop and say something. Okay, you get it? All right, ready to go.
Revisiting what is your role. Thanks. So we're gonna revisit the activity that we did this morning, but with a new lens, a new area of focus. But before we get there, I think it's important to visit a piece of semantics that somebody pointed out to me that we all have clarified in our head, but may not be clarified in yours. So, I wonder if there's a pointer. I'm a little afraid to try. Oh, here we go. All right. So, as you all know, you are being asked to be an implementation facilitator. Right? Does everybody have that? Yeah. When the grant was written, they were called facilitation. Do I need it? Am I loud enough? Okay. Facilitation coaches.
No, we need it.
Oh, need it. Okay. Facilitation coaches. The coaches have the same job, right? They were described the exact same way. But we have this thing going on in our schools where we have literacy coaches, right? So we were very concerned about confusion of roles. So this morning when we read through the 2-page description of the project, you may have seen it says coaches in there. But we want to make sure that you have an understanding that we're always referring to ourselves as an implementation facilitator. And there's a big difference in that. So go ahead and read how they might be different. So, no, not reading. Literacy coaches, different than an implementation facilitator. Talk to your table, your whole table. Talk a minute about how are those different? Why would we call them different things?
Systems for schools. There's the coaches are doing various activities in the classroom to cope.
All right. Do you need one more minute? Okay, one more minute. All right, if you could wrap that up. So I'm hoping and thinking there are literacy coaches at every table, and so this was not a hard activity. What I would like is for, I'm going to do an airplane stacking again, so I would like number 1 to address how these two are different. Number 2, to see if they can tell me, as a HIL facilitator, who is your main audience as opposed to a literacy coach. Number 3 would address what part do I play in the visioning, planning, and monitoring as a HIL facilitator. And then how might I interact with classroom teachers as a HIL facilitator. So who would take number 1? This is low level. This is the bravest one. This is simple. Be brave. Susie, who would like to address this one? Who is my main audience? Thank you. Bob, what part do I play in the visioning, planning, and monitoring? Oh, thank you, Jeremy. How might I interact with classroom teachers?
I'll take a guess.
Becky. And thank you for having me, everybody I knew a name of. That was awesome. All right, number 1.
So that's the difference between a, I'll state and deliver, sorry. Am I addressing the difference between a literacy coach and the implementation facilitator?
Yes.
So to me, a literacy coach would be those coaches who are supporting the classroom teachers. They're going in, doing various activities from modeling to co-planning, and really supporting boots on the ground, those classroom teachers. Whereas the implementation facilitator, I see them more looking at the systems of the school, working more closely with the principal, while also supporting the leadership team compared to the more the teacher level. Clear as mud?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll keep throwing that out. Perfect. Thank you very
Yeah,
much. Very
you're welcome.
much. My number 2, who was brave there? Bob.
So if you look at the sheet, I believe that the green items there are the audience. I can speak about. So you have the principal, obviously, the teachers, teacher leaders, and then of course us. So I'm thinking too that the literacy coach should be part of your audience as well.
So the literacy coach is someone who's brought into the team and the planning, but it's the leadership team and the principal who are the primary interactors with the facilitation coach. Not to say they wouldn't be in classrooms and visiting classrooms and doing walkthroughs and talking about data with teachers, but that's not their main area of focus, your main area of focus. Okay.
So number 2, right? So as an implementation facilitator, I think a lot of our work and how we interact with the administrative team more so is going to be along the visioning line who we're working with, and we're going to be planning and monitoring alongside the principal and the leadership team. We're not going to be directing it. We're going to kind of be that other set of eyes and ears, kind of, hey, have you thought about this? What do you think about this? Because if we make it about us, it's going to make for a very uncomfortable situation.
Thank you. Thank you. And Becky, how might I interact with classroom teachers?
So I think that you kind of stated it a little bit earlier. So you could be in their classrooms, you know, observing, maybe coaching a little bit with them as far as specific things, maybe very connected to what the vision and planning. I can see also helping lead PLC conversations that are, again, tied to your vision and planning. And then always leading back to that team of teachers and that principle of what that direction is.
Thank you. You guys are geniuses.
Diane, do you ever see the facilitator working with children? Not so much as a teaching capacity, but just developing relationships with the kids, or do you think that would be like something that the facilitator should not get involved in?
I'm going to let Pat address that right there.
Pretty much any interaction in the school that is going to help you inform the leadership work would be fair game. So what we'd ask you to do, if you're going to be in a teacher's classroom, if you're working with if you're interacting with parents, you're interacting with students, if you take the lens of, I'm here to be a another set of ears and eyes for the leadership team. I'm here to help build that understanding of our school capacity and the needs of our children and the needs of our parents and the needs of our staff. I'm not here to coach a teacher. I'm not here to do parenting programs. And I'm not here to do instructional impact directly with students. But all of those players in the school are such an important source of information that helps the leadership team understand the current status of their school. So if you can be that other set of eyes and ears and hands to intentionally engage those people and understand more about their needs and where they think they are, then yes, go ahead and interact. Okay. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
For example, when we are conducting instructional rounds, our richest source of information is asking those children, what are you supposed to be doing right now? What are your goals? How do you know what you're supposed to accomplish in reading? Very good data, but we then wouldn't tell the teacher what to change. Thank you very much. Please look for the piece of paper that you've probably seen before. It says my job, your job. It says facilitator and coordinator on each side. Has a blue banner at the top. There we go. Yep, folks are holding it up. Thank you. Is there anybody who does not have that? All right.
Oh, here's extra. We got extra.
There we go. Mine was like the last one of my book.
Didn't get on your table. Do you have an extra?
I think we do. Right here?
Oh, yeah.
Good wait.
No, that's fine.
The same one from before.
All right, thank you. What I'd like you to do now is please read over the part that says what we as your coordinators are going to be available to do for you. What's our job for you? On the back of this card, please take a moment. I'm not going to have you write 8 or 10. You've done a lot of processing. Write 5 key words that you think will be important to include in your description as you meet your principal, you meet your leadership team, you meet that superintendent. What are some key words you want to make sure are embedded in that conversation as you describe the project and you describe your role? What I would like you to do right now is turn to your partner. The person closest to this side of the room is A. The person closest to this side of the room is B. Take your 5 words and try to put that together in a sentence or 2 to encapsulate what your job is as the facilitator of implementation in this project. Person A, when you're ready, begin. Help me out real quick. And we're going to engage in a process that I would like you to engage in on your own tonight with someone you love who puts up with us and lets us practice paraphrasing even when they're sick of hearing us paraphrase them. So this might be a beneficial activity to engage in. So I'm the principal, and Jo's showing up on her first day as a HIL Facilitator. Hey, hi, welcome. Thanks for coming to my school. I can't wait to show you all the good things that are going on here.
Good morning. I'm so excited to be here also.
That is fantastic. Would you mind walking down the hall with me, because I don't have a sub in that room, and so I need to just make sure we got
Absolutely. Tell me about your building as we walk.
Oh, well, we've got really great scores, but third grade's a little bit of a problem, but everybody's working so hard. Everybody's using MESA units, and we're just struggling though, because that K2, they don't do everything right, and so we gotta pop when we're here.
So you have some good things going that you're excited about, but this partnership is about looking at areas that you want to focus on for improvement. And I think as we partner together, we might be able to help each other.
That sounds great. So, like, I don't know what your actual job here is, but can you, I can't figure it out. Because I've got a literacy coach, and I've got a partnership coach, and I do.
So you've got some good leadership in the building, taking care of a lot of things. This role really is about supporting you and helping you with your goals for this building, focused on literacy, so that we can implement those Jelen literacy essentials that the Reading Now Network has identified, and plan for the implementation, and you know, look at what's happening in your building and monitor, and then evaluate our progress together.
So you're here to help me?
I'm here for you, and I want to be a support and a resource for you.
Do you have a list of stuff we're supposed to do?
Well, we want to be thinking about your goals, so you might want to think about your school improvement plan, or perhaps you've had your instructional rounds. Have you had those yet?
Yeah, they made some good recommendations.
Yeah, well, that might be a starting spot then, to take a look at those together, and because I don't know what those are, so I'll need to hear from you.
So maybe that's something we can sit down with this one.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Jill.
Sure.
I'm going to cover this classroom. If you
Absolutely.
go back, the secretary will show you where our data room is, okay?
Oh,
All right. Thank you. And you can tell Jill thank you. So be prepared for the worst. All right. And now I am going to ask Dustin to come up. Right on time, dude. And Dustin is going to share with you one of the absolute concrete things we can give to you.
That's what we love.